Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Sit down, grab a cup of coffee. It's a new format for Coffee Break, obviously. We are diving into debates and discussions around one topic, and I had asked on Twitter what everybody wanted to talk about this week, and the most votes got about the Denver Nuggets, obviously going 2-0 on the weekend. Plenty to get into. Jake Shapiro hanging out with us for a little bit. Jake, how are you? It's been a second.
I'm good.
Have you ever been in the studio?
I have been in it, but I haven't been on camera in here since we changed the studio.
It's crazy.
Which is wild because I was the producer for this show for like 2 years,
so
like
long.
A year and a half.
I know. Yeah. So fun. Anyways, let's get into the little bit about the Denver Nuggets. I'm starting to get a little offended, Jake, and you tell me if I'm wrong or whatever, but the Nuggets were obviously in D.C. this past weekend. We did not see them go to the White House, which typically when you win a championship, when you head out to D.C., you go to the White House, whatever. The only reason I'm a little offended is because the Colorado Avalanche never went to the White House. So now it's both teams in Colorado. Nothing's happened.
Yeah, and this isn't a political reason or anything.
Oh, no.
Yeah, nefarious or the team protesting or anything like that. This is going to happen simply because the Nuggets and Avalanche are West Coast teams. They only go to Washington, D.C. once a year.
True.
And the one time each of them have gone, there's been a scheduling conflict with the White House and President Joe Biden. So the Nuggets weren't able to go to the White House. Actually, recently, the Golden State Warriors, I think, went to the White House like 2 years after the fact that they won the title, like recently. So, yeah, this is just something that's an East Coast bias thing. It's going to be more common for East Coast teams to visit the White House than the West Coast teams.
Okay, I'm just kind of on this path of why the heck aren't we seeing them go, right? Like, it's a big, exciting thing to be able to see. I always want to see the speeches. I always think of, like, Jason Kelce and the crazy things he did when the Eagles did it. So I'm like, I want to see all these speeches. So why the heck aren't the two teams in Colorado that I love going to the White House?
Yeah, Mace has so many great stories from when the Broncos went to the White House after the Super Bowl, too. And, I would have, had I known for sure that the Nuggets would have gone to the White House, I would have been in Washington, D.C., not Vail this weekend. But yeah, that it is a shame because these are the things that come with winning a championship. These are the spoils, and you're talking about it from a fan perspective, and we're going to get into this a little bit later in the show with another one of the topics. But as a fan, you want to see your team. You want to have these pictures, these things in your memory bank, because that's part of the greatness of winning a championship. It is the parade. It is the jersey ceremonies and the hanging of the rafters and the ring ceremonies and all that different types of stuff. That's the stuff that makes a championship great. Like, I honestly, in a way, and, I don't really feel bad for the Lakers, but, it really does discount their championship a little bit that they didn't get the entire parade and the jersey and the ring ceremony and all that type of stuff and the pennant and the banner. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's winning a championship is so big that you want those moments every time. Like, I get excited when a Bruce Brown or a Jeff Green comes back to Denver because I'm like, oh, we get to relive that ring ceremony all over again. So I'm a little bummed that they haven't done it, but do you think it'll happen in the near future?
It's going to happen next year, or probably not at all. And I wonder if it will happen next year. I doubt that the Nuggets are going to fly to the East Coast, even if they have 2 days off just to meet President Joe Biden. I don't think that the guys care enough about that, and they would rather have an off day. So I would say the likelihood of the Nuggets getting a White House visit, if they don't win another title here, is probably 20%. It's not high.
Okay, well, I won't be looking forward to that then. I won't be waiting for that to happen. They obviously were in Washington, D.C. They beat the Wizards. First of all, you tell me, you're a big basketball guy. Do the Wizards hate Embiid and the 76ers? Is there a rivalry there?
Well, this has gotten very interesting for Washington, D.C. sports fans in the last year or so. Do you know who owns the Philadelphia 76ers?
Josh Harris.
Who owns the Washington Commanders?
Josh Harris.
Exactly. So there is a little bit of a split in the fandom. It's not like here where all of the teams are basically owned by Walmart money, right? It's all the same ownership, more or less. Their ownership is split across the board. There's always been a rivalry between Washington and Philadelphia because of the closeness, the distance between these cities. Granted, the Washington Wizards haven't won 50 games literally in 60 years. They've been horrible for basically.
Wait, you're kidding.
No, they haven't since 1979.
I know they were bad, but I didn't realize they were that bad.
No, John Wall didn't get them to 50 wins ever. They haven't been to a championship since Wes Unseld, and obviously Wes Unseld's son was an assistant coach of the Nuggets. Yeah. So they haven't been good since the late 70s when they were the Washington Bullets. They've been bad for a long, long, long time. So that hatred that exists between Washington and Philadelphia sports maybe isn't as large in the basketball arena just because Washington has been so bad for such a long time. But there's definitely a rivalry there. And I'm not surprised that Washington, D.C., which is a pretty international city, would be behind the Serbian star, Nikola Jokic.
I'm glad you bring that up because, yes, there were chanting of MVP for Nikola Jokic, which was just like huge thing. And of course, I'm like, East Coast team, I'm surprised you guys care so much. So that's why I asked the question. It's cool to see that, though, with Jokic.
Yeah, and we talked about the stuff you care about as a fan, the stuff that makes being a fan great in the championships and being a great team. I know Nikola Jokic might not care about winning another MVP. He immensely cares about basketball. He really does. Like, he lives and breathes the sport. But Rachel, he does not care about the stuff that comes with it. Unfortunately, all of us should care. All of us should care whether or not Nikola Jokic wins the MVP, because this is the type of stuff that legacies are built on. And when at the end of Nikola Jokic's career, are we going, is he the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth greatest basketball player of all time? We're going to go back and see how many MVPs he won. And no one's going to remember 2022, 2023 when he should have won the MVP. Yeah. They're just going to say how many MVPs he won in total. So yeah, he got robbed last year, and he needs to be made up for it this year because he is playing well enough to earn the MVP this year. Aside from the fact that the playoff success, which is the thing that knocked him back the last 2 years, has added up to that. So, yeah, unless Joel Embiid completely outplays Nikola Jokic the next couple of weeks, as well as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been fantastic, or maybe even Luka Doncic makes a push, it needs to be Nikola Jokic because he needs to be honored and treated like the legend of basketball he is. If you go up in the basketball reference pages and the sports history pages, the best seasons in basketball history, some of the best seasons in basketball history, 3 of the 5 best offensive seasons in basketball history have been Nikola Jokic the last 3 years. And he's doing it again. And that's why he needs to win the MVP. It's wrong if he does not. And that's why I appreciate the Washington fans saying, hey, that's the MVP.
Oh, and I love that too, 100%. And it's sad because we're talking time after time, night after night. Oh, triple-double, triple-double, triple-double. How many triple-doubles are we talking about? But yeah, in the long run, like, our kids probably aren't going to be like, oh, yeah, all of these crazy triple doubles. They're going to look at championship rings and MVPs. And that's what we still do to this day, even with former players.
Well, I always in my head think about when I'm lucky enough to maybe have a kid in the future. I go, I know my kid's going to come up to me and be like, oh, this shooting guard for the Nuggets, he's so great. He's got to be the best player in franchise history. And I'm just going to look at him and go, no. Like,
you have no idea.
No idea.
Is that true?
Right. And, I'm literally, my middle name is Jordan. My dad's a giant Bulls fan. And yes. I have begun the conversations with him and I'm like, Dad, I think he might be on that level. And he's like, I think you're right. Like that's where we're at. So, but I know that this is going to happen in the future. And, there's no guarantee the Nuggets ever win another championship. So this one will always hold something special. And that's why it is such a big deal that he got that. And he's the first MVP. He's the first team NBA player in Nuggets history since David Thompson. There's so many different things next to Nikola Jokic's name where you can reference where it's not like, okay, but seeing it night in and night out and the consistency of it is making it so fun to watch game 45 of the regular season.
Right. That's the truth too. My question to you, actually, just speaking on Nikola Jokic and, the longevity of his career, we've all talked about it may not be very long. One thing about Michael Jordan is he played so long in the league.
Did he?
I mean, yes.
Well, he was drafted in 84 and he missed 3 years in his prime and he retired in 98 and then he came back at the end. I think he only played 13 years before his stint with the Wizards. So he didn't play as long as people think.
And Jokic is what, on year 6?
No, he was drafted 14, debuted in 15. So this is year 8 or 9.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Dude, time is just flying by. That one kind of blows me away.
This is his peak right now.
Yeah.
He'll never be better than he is right now.
No,
I said last year, the year before, he was going to get better. This is now the top that Jokic can ever be. In fact, if you, again, look at the offensive numbers, LeBron in 2018, Magic Johnson in 1990, in Nikola Jokic right now are the 3 players in NBA history who've had the most command over an offense. It's like similar to the Peyton Manning with the top Broncos teams. It's like no one's ever quite run an offense the way Nikola Jokic is right now. I don't possibly see a way it gets better. But again, people have said that for a couple of years and he's found a way.
Yeah, no, true. Okay, I want to go to the shot selection that we have from the Wizards, because what does this tell you about what Michael Malone is trying to do with Nikola Jokic?
Well, part of it too with the Wizards is they don't really have a lot of size down low.
First of all, I love your laugh. You were so cute with that right there.
It's just hilarious because he's hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
He's a hilarious basketball player. Like, I still can't believe he only put up 3 shots against the Pistons just to make a point.
I know. And he does it all the time. Like, there's like little games within the game, right?
Right. And this is the type of stuff Jackie McMullen on ESPN talks about with Larry Bird or Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, the stuff that makes them so legendary. He's doing this type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to see on a day in, day out basis. But Nikola Jokic, when he has that matchup advantage, I'm happy that Michael Malone convinced Nikola Jokic, hey, I know we're playing a bad team tonight, but can you please just pound the paint?
Yeah.
Can you just please take advantage of your matchup? Because that doesn't happen every night. And granted, Jokic is such a great teammate for the fact that, hey, I know we don't need me to do this tonight, so let's get everyone else involved.
Yeah.
He didn't need to do that against the Wizards, but it was the easiest way for the Nuggets to score a road win against a bad team, was just for Jokic to, hey, pound the paint against Daniel Gafford.
Right.
Like, you can do that.
No, 100%. And I love that they are utilizing him, because I feel like sometimes we really want to see Jokic like shoot the 3 or whatever it is. But I'm like, if you don't have to, let's not do it. Let's just stick with the basics here against a very bad team.
Well, the funny thing is he shoots the 3 at a similar efficiency level to Steph Curry.
It's insane.
Yeah. Obviously he doesn't take as many, and they're not as hard because they're not dribble pull-ups and they're not as far out. But there is no such thing as a bad Nikola Jokic shot.
Yeah.
It's just that from 7 feet and in, it feels automatic, whereas from 3-point line, it's like, 40%. And granted, if you put out the efficiency levels and, measure the fact that it's a 3 versus a 2, it makes sense to still take the 3, but it is nice to always get 2 points and it feels automatic. So yeah, I feel you on that. But yeah, if the Nuggets continue to deploy that strategy, is just hammering the paint with the shooters around them, that's the strategy that brings them success. And you look at the Warriors series that they lost 2 years ago in the playoffs. The reason they lost that series is because they had no shooting outside of Nikola Jokic. They just swarmed Jokic in the paint. They got into the passing lane, so he had to shoot. He couldn't pass, and they were tough shots. So as long as the Nuggets have shooters, and this is why Michael Porter Jr. is so important to the team, even when he's not shooting, because the threat of Michael Porter's shot, the threat of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's shot, makes it so Nikola Jokic can operate with Jamal Murray with far greater space.
I'm so glad you brought up MPJ, because CBS had released an article saying like 10 unexpected names that could possibly be traded by the trade deadline coming up. And MPJ was listed number 4 on the list. And you have this kind of like smirk on your face right now of, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
I saw you do a short on that and I was livid.
Literally, I had so many comments and I was like, I didn't say that I was the one who was doing that, but that's what CBS said.
Yeah.
I got so many comments on that, you guys. It was actually insane.
There's no way the Nuggets are trading Michael Porter Jr. anytime soon. I could see it because of cap circumstances after next season, but like it's not something they're going to want to do. It'd be forced because of the Jamal Murray Supermax if that happens.
You have the core right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they need, I mean, it'd be nice to have more depth, don't get me wrong, but you have your core right now. Just make a run with it. Again, road to repeat.
The only trade that the Nuggets should or maybe need to make is like minuscule. It's like a rotation player here or there. But you look at Porter, and this is the thing that really bothers me, because it's very clear who talks about Porter, how many Nuggets games they've watched this year. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've watched the Lakers game, the Christmas game day, or they've seen a couple games since the playoffs last year. Michael Porter Jr. is such a good defender now. He's such a good defender. He's always in the right spot. He makes little plays. He crashes the glass. He realized the fact that he's 6'10", 6'11". He uses that size. He's actually a decent shot blocker. Like, everything Michael Porter does on the basketball court is in the name of helping his teammates win. And he has humbled himself to the point where he has accepted his role. And how many guys are that talented in the NBA that accept their role? And the answer is maybe 2. Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon.
That is my biggest thing, is he realized he's not going to be the superstar of this team, and it's made him a better player.
Yeah.
It's insane, the difference when you kind of look at when everybody was trashing on MPJ really early on. But it's like they all realized Nikola Jokic is it. If I can support him too, we can be amazing for this team. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah. And you look at what Michael Porter Jr. would be away from Nikola Jokic. You see the on-off numbers of what Porter does without Jokic on the court. He's actually one of the people least affected, but all it takes is looking at Bruce Brown's shooting percentages this year away from Jokic to realize, hey, I'm Michael Porter Jr. I'm never going to get as good of looks as I am in the future as I am right now with Nikola and Jamal being that third fiddle. And maybe one day, hey, he says, I want to do something different. This isn't good enough. All power to him. He's won his championship here. He's made his contributions. But right now, why would you get rid of a guy that talented who is adamant about wanting to be here and is doing the things that no one else wants to do on a basketball court?
100%. And also, I just want to make this very clear for everybody that watched that reel. I was not saying they should trade him. I was just reporting what CBS had stated. So I am all on the MPJ train. I'm on Jamal Murray. I'm on this team 100%. I think the road to repeat can happen if everybody can stay healthy. It's going to be tough. You get everybody's best battles every single night. But hey, look at what they did against the Celtics, giving them their first home loss of the season on Friday night.
Yeah, and that was really impressive because that was the Nuggets going all in. Michael Malone said they were all in that game. They were testing out their playoff rotation. They did this a couple times towards the second half of last season. They did it very memorably in the game against Memphis in March of last regular season, where they just said, let's see what it looks like if we play tonight like a postseason game. Yeah. And the advantage of that was it was on national TV. They had a couple days rest going in and coming out of it, so they could really use it as a test marker. And it was 7 guys playing more than 20 minutes. There was only 8 guys or 9 guys that even played in the game. Aaron Gordon was your backup center. And yeah, do the Nuggets probably need a backup center to get them through the last 30 games of the season? Yeah, but they don't need one in the playoffs because Aaron Gordon has shown he's capable of it. The only thing they kind of are a little sketchy on is if they get in foul trouble with both Aaron and Nikola in the playoffs, but let's worry about that later. The thing that was so impressive about Boston is Jamal Murray has an on switch and he knows he has an on switch and he can flip it. He can activate it. And that on switch carries over to the rest of the team. The Nuggets coast through games against Washington and they win them. They coast through games against, XYZ and they win most of them. And it's fine. Even if they lose 1 or 2 here and there, which has happened, it's fine. But when they put on that on switch, it's the 16-4 team we saw in the playoffs last year. It's nearly impossible to beat them. And we saw in that game in particular, the differences in coaching between Michael Malone and Joe Mazzulla. One is a really good head coach. One is not. And Michael Malone completely outcoached Joe Mazzulla. That's how the Nuggets were able to make that comeback. Jason Tatum doesn't have that thing in him yet that Nikola Jokic does, where he can close out games. Jaylen Brown isn't enough. Really, the only guy that steps up to the task on that, well, there's 2 guys that step up to the task on that Boston team. It's Al Horford and Derek White. All the other guys shrink in the moment. That's why I thought going into, this season, I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't want to see Boston in the playoffs just because they're so talented, and that starting 5 is the only starting 5 that could be as good as the Nuggets. After seeing the Nuggets beat Boston in Boston the other night and the way that game played out, I'm like, give me Boston. Boston is a good matchup for the Nuggets. I thought it would be a terrible matchup. That is actually a really good matchup for the Nuggets, especially because Al Horford is a shadow of a player he was even just 6 months ago.
Okay. I like the intensity you're bringing here. I'm curious for you, out of the young guys, obviously we saw Christian Brown really step up in the playoffs, and they seem so far away, but yet also I'm just like, okay, I want it to be the playoffs so bad. Who are you liking? Because it seems like CB, not that he's fallen off, but he just isn't being talked about in the way that he was last season to a degree. But I'm curious if there's any of the new guys that you're thinking like, they could be the CB of the postseason last year.
Well, let me just say on CB, the expectation for him was ludicrous this year, that he was going to become Bruce Brown as a second-year player. I think CB has been almost as good as last year at times. He's been focusing on other aspects of his game that aren't 3-pointers and defense. And he's trying to add to his game. It's a work in progress. I think he's fine. This is a part of the Nuggets' future. And I'm not really concerned with Christian Brown at this point. I think once his role gets more defined come playoff time, where it's just you are playing defense and you are shooting 3-pointers and you are crashing the rebounds, he's going to find himself again. But because he's having to do some playmaking right now, it's kind of struggle. But the number one Nugget that's impressed me this year, outside of course, the starting 5, which is just an unbelievable unit, is Payton Watson. And I wrote about him last year towards the end of the year. I went to Phoenix and I wrote a story on Payton Watson. And it was the first time he played more than 30 minutes in a college or an NBA game, because he only played about 200 minutes at UCLA. Yeah. And there's this awesome thing that happened in the game. Payton has 2 blocks guarding Kevin Durant late in the game. The Nuggets were playing nobody in this game. It was a game nobody remembers. And they didn't even bring Nikola or Aaron on this, or Aaron went on this trip, but none of the other starting 5 were on this trip. And the Nuggets took that fully healthy Phoenix Suns team last year to the fourth quarter. It was like a 6-point game at the end of it, but the Nuggets led with 4 minutes to go. They just didn't have anyone to close the game out. And after the game, I'm standing with Payton Watson in his locker, and he's got a jersey from Kevin Durant just off his back. sign. It says, you're next, love KD, or, you're next, P. Watt, love KD. And I realized from that moment, I started talking to the veterans in the Nuggets locker room, DeAndre Jordan, Reggie Jackson. What do you think about Payton Watson? They're like, oh my God, like this kid. So I started having conversations with people around basketball, and he was so highly respected for a raw 18-year-old, 19-year-old that I'm like, everyone sees something with this guy that maybe people aren't seeing yet, where they think he's actually going to not just be a productive NBA player, but a star, because you're getting that respect and that ability to play, at the schoolyard with Kevin Durant and stuff like that. And Russell Westbrook, they've taken you under their wings, and you've seen it this year play out. Payton has worked on his shot. He's got a steady stroke. The 3-point shooting can be inconsistent from night to night, but the stroke looks good. He is hitting the glass. His block percentage, so not the amount of blocks he gets, but the amount of blocks he gets per possession, is top 12 in the NBA. Most of the guys in front of him are centers. His shooting splits and his steal numbers and his block percentage numbers are akin to Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard early on in their careers. I cannot tell you how good Payton Watson has been. It has been fantastic. And, obviously your wing defender, your backup wing defender is not normally your sixth man. You normally want like a spark guy, but Payton has found a way to make that work as a sixth man. And you're seeing him start to develop his own way of scoring the ball, which is similar to Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, of hitting these fading like mid-range jumpers from about 12 to 15 feet out. So it's really inconsistent because he's really in his rookie season. Yes, it's his second season, but he didn't play much that season. He's really in his rookie season. So you can't count on it, especially come playoff time. But you're looking at this piece and going, this is going to be a part of the Nuggets core for years. And Calvin Booth, I don't know how he figured this out, but he hit on it. And it's actually inspired a lot of NBA teams to draft guys that have struggled in college, but were really highly rated recruits coming out. And there's another guy this year that's produced that way. Dallas Mavericks, their center, Derek Lively. He really struggled at Duke, but was one of the top recruits in his class.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, you need to everybody go buy a P-Watt jersey because, yes, he has been so much fun to watch. Jake, as always, thank you so much, my friend, for hanging out with us. To everybody else, I'll see you tomorrow, 10:30 or 10 a.m. for Denver Sports Daily and 12 p.m. for another episode of Coffee Break. Love you guys so much. We'll see you later. Bye.